we're going to talk about Azure Security Center. And actually, this is something that I'm just learning about as well. So I don't know everything about Azure Security Center, but I'm going to let you know what I know, at least so far, which is kind of cool stuff.
What you don't know, Rick, doesn't need to be known.
Of course not, right? Actually, I did look, and I did an event about 10 days ago in Pittsburgh, and that's where these slides are from, called Simplified Hybrid Cloud Protection with Azure Security Center. I'm actually doing another event next week in Houston, and then the week after that in Omaha. So we're covering these same type of topics. So, and there's one coming up here in Charlotte. So if you go to, if you just Bing or Google, whichever one you like, right? You can look up Microsoft
Edge.
Oh, use Edge. Sorry. I don't know the proper technology terms anymore. But Google Microsoft US Tech Summit. They'll have some big things about a 2-day event. This is only a 1-day event for certain cities like Charlotte and Pittsburgh and Omaha, all places I'm doing. It's a 1-day event. But they're doing it here in Charlotte, I think, in about a week or so. So check it out, sign up. A lot of the cities are already sold out. So if you get on a waiting list, probably come anyway, because there's people who don't show up anyway. So that's what I would do. There we go. So really, one thing you have to think about is we have the cloud adoption growing very quickly. 90% of the Fortune 500 companies are using the Microsoft Cloud in some form, whether it's Azure or Office 365, those type of offerings, they're using the cloud. And more organizations that I'm working out with personally are adopting, if yours hasn't already adopted this already, the cloud-first mentality. In other words, if they have a new project, they're going to basically put it in the cloud first if they can. Unless there's some reason they can't put it in the cloud, it is going to go into Azure. So one of the things that this means, though, is that not everything is going to be in Azure or in another cloud. It's going to also be on-prem. So they have some stuff that's going to be on-prem and some stuff that's going to be in the cloud. So that means they're going to have a hybrid type of environment. And basically, I see this all the time with customers I'm working with. They say, well, we don't want to put that part in the cloud because we don't think it will do well up there. So okay. Well, let her go. So one of the things that this means is that you now, instead of having all of your data assets in one data center, right, or maybe you have a DR's data center as well, you now have a distributed environment. So you have stuff on-prem, you have stuff in Azure, maybe you also have stuff in AWS or Google Cloud Platform. So you have a distributed environment. And this also means you're going to have different owners of that data, probably different operators, different developers for all these different things. So you're going to have a distributed environment to work with. Now also you have rapidly changing cloud resources. Now, every time I turn around, there seems to be something new in Azure, right? There's like, oh, we have, like, for example, in the data world, we have the managed instance that just came out into public preview. If you don't know what that is, it's kind of like a cross between Azure SQL Database and your own instance that you run on a VM. It's kind of in the middle right there. And there's so much stuff that I'm still learning about that you say, well, how do I protect that? And that's one of the things that Azure Security Center is designed to do, is to also to protect not only your IaaS stuff that you would have running on VMs, because we've been doing that for a long time, but also some of the PaaS offerings, the platform as a service offerings that we see out there. So we have these rapidly changing resources that's changing all the time, and we need to adapt to that. And we have increasingly sophisticated threats. And Microsoft, as you probably know, is one of these companies that does what they call dog fooding, right? They consume their own products in order to make it better.
It's a terrible name.
You haven't heard that before?
No.
No? Has anyone heard?
Eat your own dog food.
Yep. Okay. Yep. There's a guy eating elbow right behind you. Right. Yeah. So that they consume their own products to make it better. Right? You never heard that before?
In beta, mostly.
Yes. Yes. So, but one of the things that they've done, and this is something that I actually first heard about a year and a half ago, which I didn't really know. Before that was if you spin up a VM in Azure on like a free Azure Pass, and once that Azure Pass expires, you think, oh, your VM is gone. Well, to you it is, but actually what Microsoft does is they have basically keep all the VMs that people spin up for free, and they do analysis on it, because lots of bad guys use free VMs to launch their attacks from. So they using those VMs as part of their analytics data lake, if you will, to look for stuff about what bad guys do. Also, for years and years and years, when you have a blue screen and you send that dump into Microsoft support, a lot of times that blue screen is being generated because of some fragile malware that causes instability in the operating system. So they are basically taking a lot of that information, going through all the logs, all the analytics, and finding out common attack vectors. And they're finding out the ways that their assets are being attacked. And so they're using this technology today, even more so in Azure, because they have all these data centers all over the world, and there's lots of attacks. As a matter of fact, 10 days ago, whenever I first put on my Azure Security Center while I was in Pittsburgh, I had 4 VMs that had been running for about a week. And just had a little subscription, 4 VMs running. And I had over 200,000 attacks in 1 week on my 4 VMs. So the average VM in Azure gets about 100,000 attacks per month of some sort. Okay. So we're going to actually talk more about the common type of threats that we see that Azure Security Center lets you see. So basically, what Azure Security Center has been around for a little while, but it's always been focused on the assets in Azure. It makes sense. But now, what it's trying to do is trying to extend that protection to on-prem. So actually, with my laptop, I have enrolled it into Azure Security Center. So there's a little agent I downloaded and installed it. And so it's then reporting back up into Azure about what stuff's going on with my laptop, as far as from a security point of view. Now, this also means that if you have, and a lot of organizations are doing this, if you have a no single cloud provider mantra, means that we're going to have 2 cloud providers. So a lot of times it's AWS and Azure. So you can enroll your VMs that are on AWS into Azure Security Center. Cool. It's basically if you're running it on-prem or running on another cloud, you can still use Azure Security Center to monitor those assets. So it's a hybrid type of approach on how to help protect your investment. This is driving me crazy. So we have unified visibility control, adaptive threat prevention, and when I think of this, I think of the from Star Trek: The Next Generation with the Borg and the rotating shield harmonics, to prevent the Borg from attacking. That's kind of what I kind of think about when I think of adaptive threat protection, because it's learning all the time about what the bad guys are doing and how certain attacks from certain areas of the world, certain geographies, make their attacks, and how to try to counteract that. And then intelligent detection and response. And we're going to go through a little demo here. And what I think is really cool is that it will make recommendations for you on what you need to do for the assets that are enrolled in Azure Security Center. And you can, they have this thing called playbooks, so you can say, execute this script right now to go and fix this, that particular recommendation. Or we'll actually bring up the blade in the Azure portal so you can go and, like, for example, I just spun up a database and I turned transparent data encryption off because I wanted to, hopefully, it had enough time to figure out I don't have it on. So whenever I go to look at that particular asset, I don't have to, it won't tell me, say, hey, go turn TDE on. I can just go and click on, click, and address it right then and there. So it's trying to say, hey, you have an issue? We can fix this right now if you want to. So whenever we bring up Azure Security Center, you'll see something like this. And this is your single pane of glass, if you will, for what you are responsible for. So if you're responsible for your entire organization and you have it set up to look at all your assets, all those assets are going to be covered in here. But maybe, like I said, you have a distributed environment. Maybe you're not responsible for all of the organization or just part of it, right? So you'll just see the assets that you're responsible for from that point of view. As I said, when we go through the demo, we'll drill into some of these areas so you can see what's behind these particular boxes. But one of the other things that you can do is easily onboard resources. So whenever, like for example, when I had my laptop up and running, when I first was enrolling it, I went to Azure, my Azure portal, and I went to the onboarding section right here. I was able to download my agent and get that going right away. Policy management. So you can have certain policies set up per subscription. You can then take that policy and apply it to other subscriptions within your organization. So once you get one subscription set up the way you want it to, then you can have it be deployed across other subscriptions. For example, let's say you have a policy that requires you to have disk encryption turned on for your VMs. So if that's turned on, then that's going to flag as a recommendation or as a policy violation if it's not encrypted. So it will go with your security policies that you have set up, telling you if you have a violation or not.
Does that sync?
Does it sync?
If you added a new security policy to your central subscription, would it automatically propagate to the other ones?
So from my understanding, you would have to then export from the using the Azure management groups from the one subscription to the other ones.
So you have to do it every time.
I believe so. I haven't gone into that depth, but that's my understanding of how that works. Integrated log analytics. So uses log analytics, which is part of the data analytics piece of Azure, to go through the data and look for patterns. Looks for notable events, and you can actually create your own custom queries. So you can drill in, and it's a very SQL-like type of query language. You can go in and say, oh, well, let's see this type of event with this type of event, and we'll show you what's displayed there. So it's, again, just the notion of dog fooding, eating your own dog food to make things better. And it also stays integrated with partner solutions. For example, if you have a third-party firewall or anti-malware solution that's already in Azure, it's completely integrated with that. So the logs in there are also being analyzed by Azure Security Center. And also any solution that supports the common event format will be supported by Azure Security Center. So everything's integrated all into one, so you get a holistic picture of what's going on with your security. Adaptive threat protection. A continuous assessment of machines, networks, and Azure services. So it's going to, has lots of security assessments already built in, but I said if you want to customize a security assessment, you can. And you find those vulnerabilities quickly and have recommendations ready for you. So we're going to drill in to, in a demo I'm going to have, drill into some of these things to say, oh, this one's red. What do I need to, why is it red? Poke in there and say, oh, I don't have encryption turned on for a VM or for a database. So go into that. How close to that? Guess that close. The other thing that is really neat, the most common attack in Azure, probably everywhere else for that matter, is what they call the brute force RDP attack, where basically people are trying to RDP into your VM. Damn. No. How do I really prevent that? Because don't I need to have access to that VM to manage it? And well, you do, but there's also something that they've come up with called just-in-time access. So essentially what you do is you can go and turn this on in the demo for the VM that I have. Essentially what you do is you turn it on and it basically closes down all the ports to that VM. So you can't get in to manage it. Great. What do I do? I'm a DBA, I need to manage that. How do I get in there? So you go into the portal to Azure Security Center, and there's a selection there called Just-in-Time Access. So you click on that, and you click on what VM you want to have access to that you have Just-in-Time Access turned on, and it will, you have a incident policy for this, but it will then open the ports for a specific amount of time so that you can go in and do what you need to do, and then after that time block is expired, it closes the ports. So basically, you're preventing your surface area from being attacked. So it limits your surface area a whole bunch. Pretty cool.
Feels like exactly the nightmare that high security teams would have to deal with. Calling, I need access. Can you click the button for me? Every day.
So the access can be granted either through the Azure portal, or if you have or a PowerShell command. So if you say I need to go into here, you can have a little script you run. We'll go in, and request access, and come back and say, okay, go ahead. But of course, you have to have the right security to execute that PowerShell command for that particular asset.
Using PowerShell, how is that more efficient than just stopping the VM? You can stop and start the VM using PowerShell.
Depends how many you have.
Well, that's one thing, but what about if you have processes on that particular VM that's running?
You could script it.
Gotcha.
Right.
That's good.
So, there's lots of reasons why just-in-time access is pretty cool. There's also, and we're not going to cover this in this particular session, and actually I just learned about it when I was in Pittsburgh, but there's also a concept, I guess, in Windows Server 2016 called Just Enough Security. Have you heard about this? That was the first time I heard about it. It was pretty cool. But they said like if you're a Windows domain administrator, right, and do you really need to have those domain administrative rights all the time, like when you're checking email? Probably not. So you can basically you turn your domain rights off until you need them. Then you say, I need the domain rights, and turn them on. So it's kind of like this, but for your own domain stuff. So I think that's pretty cool. So the same concept. So, by the way, that session, I forget exactly what it was called, but it was right after lunch at the Tech Summit. I thought it was very excellent in what they're doing security-wise on the Windows Server 2016 space. So, very cool. Basically, the other thing that this does is it starts to learn what applications are legit in your environment. It starts making a whitelist of applications that, oh, you have this executable running on 8 of your 10 servers. So if you have another server you spin up, it's going to say, no, I think this application's okay. So it starts to build its own whitelist, and you can actually go in and help it learn what is acceptable and what's not to run in your environment. And they also have recommended whitelists that you can apply to your environment as well. And when you first turn it on, it is what they call an audit mode. And so we'll prevent everything, but we'll flag everything saying, this is not in your whitelist. This is not in your whitelist. This is not in your whitelist. So that way you can say, yeah, that should be on my whitelist or not. So again, the dog fooding thing about going through all these analytics, all these logs, and figuring out what's going on in your environment. From threat intelligence to partners, behavior analytics, all this stuff is really there to help you protect you from threats across the kill chain. So, inbound, brute force, RDP attacks, SSH, SQL attacks, DDoS, all these types of attacks that we're seeing, says, hey, we need to limit our surface area. We need to figure out how to shield ourselves from that. Also, install and exploit, looking at in-memory malware. Sometimes we get a virus and it's not really on the disk, it's in memory because someone clicked on something they shouldn't have and they get infected. Matter of fact, during that Windows Server session I mentioned, he was talking about an internal experiment they did at Microsoft. They sent an email out to like 1,000 employees, and there was a link in there that said, do not click on this link. And guess how many people clicked on the link?
60%.
No, it wasn't that high.
It's Microsoft. In my business, it'd be 60%.
It was like 12% or something like that. So that's incredibly high. It said, no, this is bad stuff. Do not click on this link, and they did it anyway. So
This is around, is that how they fire people?
But it had a shiny button. Shiny button.
Time for another layoff, right? Let's send out that email. Right? But also lateral movement. Maybe, for example, maybe your desktop is not the one they're after, right? But if they get into your desktop, then maybe you can get into somewhere else because you say, hey, something's not working right. And so the help desk then says, well, let us remote into it. And then they have the super secret password become administrator of that box. And all of a sudden, they're also a domain administrator too. And boom, 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 it's just lateral movement, jumping through the hoops in order to attack you. So, this is part of the reason why we have these tools up here to try to limit this exposure. And also, after the breach, communication to a known malicious IP address. When good IP addresses go bad, right? So, using compromised resources to mount additional attacks, right? Because once they get into one, they can get to another one, and so on. Actually, I have another slide here. I don't have it in my Azure Security Center because my surface area isn't big enough to display a map of the globe. But I have another slide with these, all these orange and red dots showing the attacks on the set of resources from all over the globe. And you see a big concentration in Southeast Asia. So.
Is that live? Can you see them as they come in?
No, I don't know the time period on that. I think you can customize that view, but I don't know if you can see it live or not. Probably not. You may not know you're being attacked until later. So, focus on the most critical threats. So prioritizes things for you. So when you look at your list, you see which ones are red, which ones are orange, and so on. To say, hey, look at me. I'm doing something bad. Here's that one I was talking about with the orange and red flags over here. So you can visualize where your attacks are coming from. Now, here's something that's kind of neat to understand. All the orange are inbound attacks. In other words, they're attacks coming into your resources. And then the red ones are outbound attacks. In other words, you're probably being compromised, and you have stuff going out to these other places. So it's pretty cool visualization of what's going on here. And this particular one, this
Is Eden out there?
947 attacks from Scandinavia.
yeah.
Sometimes angry.
Those Swedes.
Sven. It's cold up there. And nothing else to do.
Yeah, but it was dark outside, right? What else are you gonna do? Also, you can launch what they call an investigation, and mine aren't very fun to look at, kind of boring, right? But this is the type of thing that you see where it's going into this particular instance of a successful Rdp Brute-Force Attack. So they would get into there, and here is the resource that was attacked, and here are all the other objects, security objects, that are related to it. Yes, sir.
So, as a person having a resource on the internet, which is the cloud being the marketing term for internet, why would I want to see a successful RDP attack instead of a we blocked this and it didn't bother you?
Well, that's what the investigation is for, right?
No, that's post hoc, right?
Right. This is saying this.
I want you to block it first. I don't want to
Sure.
have RDP on the internet. That's a terrible idea.
Sure, but I set up.
I don't do it at the house. Why would I do it with my corporate assets?
Because I went to school with that. With this particular attack, right? I set up as a username administrator, password 123456, right? And just this is what happened, right? And it says this is a successful RDP attack because it came from a certain IP address.
Okay.
And you can block those certain IP addresses, or you can that certain range of IP addresses as well, or you can allow just certain ones, right? So you can do that, but it's up to you to define your own security policies in your profile. But this tells me all the resources that were associated with that particular attack. So it may have not been after that particular server, but it might have been after other resources in that domain or connected to it. It might be after the storage account that is attached to that particular VM that was going into. So it helps you visualize, hey, maybe it just wasn't after this little test VM I created. Maybe it was really after the storage account associated with that, because I have other sensitive material on that storage account that it may or may not know about. Respond quickly to threats, so that once you do find out that you are being attacked or you have uncovered an attack, you can do something about it. One of the things that you can do is if you do find out an attack, you can do things like trigger workflows, such as maybe route alerts to a ticketing system, such as ServiceNow, right? Or you can gather additional information, apply additional security controls, ask a user to validate an action, for example, saying, hey, we had someone RDP in from Vermont last night. Do we have any employees in Vermont? Well, no, but Joe was up in Vermont on vacation last week, and let me validate to make sure that he was actually the person coming in to check something out for us, right? So you can do stuff like that. Block a suspicious user account, or restrict traffic from a particular IP address. So you can do certain things. If you're being attacked, you can have some automated stuff happen right off the bat. Yes, sir?
Does it integrate with Logic Apps? Does it also integrate with Power Apps and Flow?
Does it integrate with Power Apps?
And Flow, which are the other two components of
Flow.
Logic Apps.
I do not know that. Be a really good thing to research, right? That is a great question. I do not. I have not looked into that area yet. And one of the really great things that I really love about working with Azure, I love it and hate it at the same time, is that there's always something new, right? You always have to learn something new. Something's always changing. So let's go over to my Azure Security Center. Maybe. Where is it? It's right there. Okay. So, I've had to turn off and delete some VMs because I'm almost out of money. So,
Is that Rdp money? Gave you $250, which maybe.
no, it's because I'm a partner seller. Sounds fancy, doesn't it? Okay, so just so I only have one VM running right now. It's this guy here, and I have two SQL databases running. I just spun up this guy here, test 2. But I am going to go down here to my left side of my blade to Security Center, and it's going to come up and tell me what's going on. Now, I've been trying to limit, I've been shutting down my VMs a lot lately. So I've only had in the events in the last week about 65,000. And I've had 3 VMs or so on average running. And I've been shutting them down like 6 o'clock at night. So I've been trying to limit my exposure and my money spent, more so than that.
So are these only security events?
These are events. So if I click on that, and I will go to my default workspace. So I have notable events and I have all events by type. So if I go to all events by type, I have security events. I can drill into that. They need faster internet here. Just saying. Okay, so we had, this is just a security event, we had 27,000 out of that 65,000 for security events. I'm sorry?
You can fund it out of it.
And I can see what time things were going on, so I can throw into a certain time period. And again, so I can get focused more in on what's happening with that particular event. Let me get back to my overview.
These aren't necessarily successful, though, right?
No. It's just, it's like let me go to,
So would you trying to RDP into your own VM and mistyping your own password be a security event?
I have not tried that because I'm perfect with my typing. But here is a failed Rdp Brute-Force Attack, right? And so I can drill into here, and that happened on almost a week ago.
Was that Swin
Yeah, it was Finn.
or Olga?
And your remediation steps. So it's telling me what to do. It says enforce the use of strong passwords because it was a failed RTP attempt. But it says, hey, the strong passwords are good. In case this is an Azure virtual machine and the source IP is available, add the source IP to the NSG block for 24 hours. Also create a list for RDP access in your NSG. So it's saying, hey, if you want to help limit the number of attacks, only allow a certain IP address or a certain IP address range to access this. Right? So that is, I don't think there's any playbooks for this one. Let me check. Nope. Let me go back out to here. Data and storage. So I did this on purpose. Because I have 2 Azure SQL databases. One of them I spun up right before here, before this meeting. And I purposely went in and turned transparent data encryption off. Because I wanted to show you guys that it knew that I didn't have TDE on for this particular asset. So it says I have 1 of 2 databases with TDE not enabled, and I can actually drill into this. This is what I kind of like about this. and drill into here. It will tell me test number 2 or test 2 database. And from right here, I can go in and turn encryption, transparent data encryption on, and address that threat right then and there. So I don't have to go back out and find that resource, then go back in and turn it on. It's set up to try to make things as easy as possible for you to remediate the issue that's at hand. Close this down here, there. And here is my desktop, or my laptop. I have a suspicious process termination burst. That sounds bad. And security incident with a shared process detected. I can start drilling into here and figure out what's going on. Remediation steps. It says, escalate the alert to the information security team. Well, that's me in this case, so I have to fix it myself. Make sure the machine is completely updated and has an updated anti-malware installed, etc. And I can also click on this continue investigation little button here. And this is where it gives me that this where it's saying, hey, I found this security thing, and here are all the different resources attached to that particular attack resource. So mine isn't as very exciting as the one as the slide I had up on the one with all these other strings attached to it. But it gives you the idea of, hey, all these other securables are related to this particular attack. You might want to make sure things are going fine there. Let's see, compute. Protection issues, missing system updates, I will. Back over here. More back. Just-in-time access. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I went to just-in-time access and then went to my recommended tab here and showed me I have 2 VMs that are currently not on just-in-time access. In other words, as long as I know the IP address of the resource, I can just RDP in without any issues, right? So if I go ahead and I turn this on this particular guy right here, I say enable just-in-time for VMs. That allows me to say what ports I want to be blocked when I have just-in-time access. So basically FTP and RDP type of ports going on there. I'm going to click on save. And it's enabling just-in-time access. And I didn't get a notification on that. But now I have just-in-time access configured. And you can actually configure the policy for just-in-time access so that the default is 3 hours. So I didn't change the default. So that means when I click on here to request access, I can request anywhere from 1 hour to 3 hours of access to that particular resource. I can't request more, and I can't request less than 1 hour. That's the way it's set up.
Now, does your session get terminated, or is that just the initiation of a session?
I have not tried overrunning the time period yet. But my guess is that you would be
At the end, you're at done.
that your session would be terminated, but not necessarily logged off. Yeah.
Oh, right. So if you're like running a script or a program, something, you have to re-log off.
That would be I haven't verified that yet, but that makes sense to me, right? It says know, it's just like someone came and clipped your network cord, right?
Or you just turned off your remote access.
Yep.
You're
So-
already.
So you wouldn't be logged off, just terminated. So here I go, saying how many hours, maybe I just went, maybe for the first, maybe 2 hours I want to have FTP access. And then I click on, I'm going to turn all these on. I could give it, I can say my IP address, the one I'm operating from right now, or I can specify a particular range, and I click on open ports. And now I have a notification saying the just-in-time network access request is being applied.
So how many ports are open on that machine now? Is it just those 4 and all the rest of it blocked?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
So,
Well, it has to, if it's a member of a domain, it's got the domain port still open, right?
I would guess so.
Right? It has to be.
I have not, I've only tried it with single VMs. I don't have a domain.
Or those that the Rdp ones?
Right, that's,
So, before I requested just-in-time access, when I look at my network security group with all the ports blocked, everything is like blocked. Okay, and then whenever I enable just-in-time access, it removes those blocks for my IP address.
but if, okay, I can imagine a domain joined member gets broken because you're.
I would think not, but I have not verified it because I don't have a domain. So I have no domain.
You've got ports for externally facing databases and things like that have to remain open as well.
All right, so if you have like a SQL server on a VM that is the back end to a website, right? That those are still gonna, you have to make sure those are still open, right? That you configure that through your network security group access. So that is the main stuff I wanted to show about Azure Security Center. Pretty cool stuff. The other thing, so, I don't know if I have this up here or not. Hang on a second.
How quickly does this work? So if I was to walk into a client site that says, I think I have security problems, can I just open up their Azure subscription, go to Security Center and voila? Or do we have to turn it on and wait a week for it to gather data?
So the assets that are in Azure should already have, there's 2 different tiers, and that's what I was trying to look for. Is there's a what they call the free tier and the standard tier. So the stuff in Azure is already protected by Azure Security Center to a certain degree. If you have like my laptop, right? It's not in Azure, obviously it's here. And so there is a fee of $15 per node per month for servers that are not in Azure that you onboard. So whether it's in AWS or your server in your data center, there is a $15 per server per month charge. Plus, there is also a nominal storage fee associated with all the logs that is going to be tracking for those servers as well. So you have to pay for storage, and you pay per month. And there is, I think I have it here. I used to have it up. I don't see it now. Now, I'm not sure where it is now, but if you just do a search on Azure Security Center pricing, you'll see all the details about pricing and what's in the free tier and what is not, what's the standard tier. So,
Does it only work on external VMs, or can, say you've got an Amazon Redshift
it would not
resource?
work on that, right? Because you don't have a client to install on it.
Okay.
Okay, so take actions today. Use a Security Center to manage your Azure resources. Get advanced threat protection with Security Center Standard Edition. And onboard your on-premise and other cloud workloads. And find out how vulnerable you really are. So again, these are the three main areas that we talked about tonight: unified visibility control, adaptive threat prevention, right? The board, shield thing, and intelligent detection and response, the dog fooding thing. So just kind of show you overall what the overall architecture is. Whoops, too far, put too many. So basically, it's going to look at your VMs, your Windows and Linux VMs that are already in Azure. It also looks at your networking and PaaS, like Azure SQL Database. So it protects all that stuff within there. You get logs for the threat intelligence for security analytics and looking at the platforms. And then all that stuff is brought into Azure Security Center, presented to you in the way of what we just saw here, saying red, orange, green, etc. Saying how you're being attacked, what you can do about it now to help prevent any breaches of data. So, pretty cool stuff. So with that, I don't have a table. Anyway, except from our Pittsburgh weekend. But other than that, this is basically what I wanted to talk to you guys tonight. I hope you guys learned something, and get with Azure, right? And if you have any questions, my email address is the easiest one I've ever had. It's rick@dbbest.com. I've never had an easier email address, so I take advantage of that all the time.
You must be in charge of assigning the email addresses.
Well, they asked me, said, what email address do you want? I said, well, is just Rick available? And DB Best, the founder is from Ukraine, and we have 350 employees. Like 300 of them are in the Ukraine. So as long as my name wasn't Alexander or Dmitry, I was set with my first name, pretty much. So, but
Is that the advantage of being famous? People ask you what email address you want?
well, doesn't everybody ask you?
I'll make them up.
All right. But that's all I got for tonight. Thank you very much.